In the vast darkness between stars, where empires rise and fall like waves against cosmic shores, there exists a truth that few dare speak. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can reshape the destiny of entire civilizations. This is not a tale of grand battles or technological marvels, though both feature prominently. This is the story of how one human's compassion toward a dying alien queen would echo across the galaxy for generations, proving that humanity's greatest weapon was never our ships, our guns, or our cunning, but our inexplicable ability to see worth in others when they could no longer see it in themselves. When the Zephyrian Empire controlled a quarter of known space, their queen Lyralii was considered the most beautiful and powerful being in the galaxy. But power corrupts, beauty fades, and empires crumble. What happened in the forgotten mining station on Kepler 442b would become legend, whispered in alien tongues across 1,000 worlds, the day a broken human showed a fallen queen what it meant to be truly alive. The mining station orbited Kepler 442b like a dying insect clinging to a rotting fruit. Its metal hull, once gleaming with the pride of human engineering, now bore the scars of 1,000 micrometeorite impacts and the rust-brown stains of neglect. Inside, the air recyclers wheezed with mechanical exhaustion, and the artificial gravity flickered just enough to make walking feel like stumbling through a fever dream. Marcus Chen hadn't chosen this life. Few humans ever chose to end up on the forgotten edges of space, mining asteroids for trace elements that barely paid for the fuel to transport them. But choices, Marcus had learned, were luxuries for people who hadn't watched their homeworld burn while they were too far away to help. Earth was gone now, consumed by the very war that had scattered humanity across the stars like seeds from a dying flower. He moved through the station's corridors with the practiced efficiency of someone who had long since stopped hoping for better days. The mining operation ran itself mostly, automated systems pulling rare minerals from the asteroid field while Marcus performed maintenance, filed reports that no one read, and tried not to think about how quiet space could be when you were the only human for 50 light-years in any direction. The proximity alarm changed everything. Marcus was replacing a faulty atmospheric processor when the warning klaxon began its urgent wail. He dropped his tools and rushed to the communications bay, fingers dancing across controls that had become as familiar as his own heartbeat. The displays showed a ship approaching fast, too fast for anything legitimate. Pirates, most likely, or scavengers looking for easy prey. But, as the vessel came into sensor range, Marcus felt his blood turn cold. This wasn't some ramshackle pirate craft held together with prayers and stolen parts. This was a Zephyrian royal cruiser, its elegant curves and biometallic hull unmistakable even at this distance. The ship was massive, easily 3 times the size of the mining station, and it moved with the predatory grace that had once made the Zephyrian fleet the terror of known space. Marcus's hands trembled as he activated the station's defensive systems. Not that they would do much good against a ship like that. The mining station had been built for processing or not fighting wars. Its shields could barely stop cosmic radiation, let alone military-grade weapons. If the Zephyrians wanted him dead, he'd be dead before he could even send a distress signal. But something was wrong. The ship's approach vector was erratic, its normally smooth flight pattern broken by sudden course corrections and stuttering movements. As it drew closer, Marcus could see damage along its hull, great gouges in the biometal that wept strange, luminous fluids into space. The ship wasn't hunting. It was dying. The communication array crackled to life, and a voice spoke an accented universal standard, each word carefully pronounced despite obvious pain. Mining station, this is the Royal Cruiser Astral Dawn. We request immediate assistance. Our ship is failing, and our queen requires medical attention. Marcus stared at the communications panel as if it had suddenly grown teeth. A Zephyrian queen, here, asking for help from a human. The irony was so thick he could have mined it. The Zephyrian Empire had been humanity's greatest enemy during the war, their superior technology and ruthless expansion crushing human colonies like insects. Now one of their royalty was begging for aid from the very species they had tried to exterminate. "This is mining station Kepler 7, Marcus replied, his voice steadier than he felt. "State the nature of your emergency." "Our queen is dying," came the response, and Marcus could hear the desperation creeping into the alien voice. "She has been poisoned by her own council, and our medical systems cannot neutralize the toxin. We detected your station's medical bay signature. Please, human, we know our species have been enemies, but she is all we have left." Marcus closed his eyes and tried to process what he was hearing. The Zephyrian Empire had collapsed 3 years ago, torn apart by civil war and external pressures after humanity and its allies had broken their expansion. But, apparently, some remnants survived, clinging to the old ways in the darkness between stars. "I'm just a mining engineer," Marcus said. "I don't have the medical training to help an alien, especially not royalty." "The medical bay has automated systems," the voice pleaded. "And, the Queen, she speaks your language. She could guide you through the process. Please, we have nothing left to offer except our gratitude, but we offer it freely." Marcus stood in the empty communications bay, surrounded by the quiet hum of machinery and the weight of a decision that felt far too large for one person to make. Outside the viewports, the Zephyrian ship drifted closer, its once proud hull now a monument to the fall of empires. He thought about Earth, about the billions who had died in the war, about the friends he'd lost to Zephyrian weapons. But he also thought about something his father had told him once, back when Earth still existed and choices seemed simpler. "Son," the old man had said, "hatred is like carrying a hot coal in your pocket. It might feel good to think about throwing it at your enemies, but, in the end, it's you that gets burned." "Dock with Bay 3, Marcus said finally. "I'll do what I can." The docking process took nearly an hour. The Zephyrian ship's systems were so damaged that bringing it alongside the mining station required constant manual adjustments. Marcus watched through the bay's observation window as the massive vessel settled into position with the grinding reluctance of wounded metal. When the airlock cycled open, Marcus got his first close look at a living Zephyrian. The creature that stepped through was tall and willowy, with skin that shifted between blue and violet in the station's artificial light. Its face was humanoid but elongated, with large eyes that held depths Marcus couldn't fathom. It wore what had once been elegant robes, now torn and stained with substances Marcus preferred not to identify. "I am Thane Kilos," the alien said, its voice carrying the same musical quality Marcus had heard over the communications. "I serve as the Queen's guardian and physician. Thank you for allowing us aboard your station." Behind Thane Kilos came others, moving with the careful reverence of a funeral procession. They carried between them what could only be the Queen, and Marcus felt his breath catch in his throat. Even dying, even wrapped in makeshift bandages and breathing apparatus, she was the most beautiful being he had ever seen. Queen Lyralii was smaller than her subjects, more delicate, with skin that seemed to glow from within like captured starlight. Her hair, if it could be called hair, moved with its own current, shifting between silver and gold like liquid metal. But it was her eyes that held Marcus transfixed. They were ancient eyes that had seen the rise and fall of civilizations, and in them he saw pain that went far deeper than any physical wound. "The medical bay is this way," Marcus said, leading the procession through the station's narrow corridors. The Zephyrians moved with quiet dignity, their footsteps whisper-soft on the metal decking. Marcus had activated the universal translator protocols, but he noticed that the Queen's eyes tracked his movements with obvious intelligence. She understood him without technological assistance. The medical bay was the most advanced part of the station, equipped with automated systems designed to handle everything from radiation poisoning to traumatic decompression. Marcus had used it exactly twice in 5 years, both times for minor injuries that barely required first aid. Now it hummed to life as the Zephyrians carefully placed their queen on the central treatment table. "The poison is unlike anything in our databases," Thane Kilos explained as Marcus activated the diagnostic systems. "It was created specifically to target royal bloodlines, designed by traitors within our own court. The irony is not lost on us that we seek salvation from the species we once sought to destroy." The medical scanners began their work, painting the air above the Queen with holographic displays of her alien physiology. Marcus had never seen anything like it. Her internal structure was radically different from human anatomy, organized around what appeared to be a secondary nervous system that pulsed with bioluminescent energy. "This secondary system," Marcus said, pointing to the display, "what is it?" "The neural crown," Queen Lyralii spoke for the first time, her voice barely above a whisper but carrying absolute authority. "It is what allows our kind to interface with biological technology, to command through will rather than crude mechanical controls. The poison targets this system specifically, severing the connection between mind and body." Marcus studied the readouts, trying to make sense of alien biology through human medical equipment.
The poison showed as dark veins spreading through the neural crown system, a creeping death that the Queen's natural healing couldn't combat.
The medical bay is suggesting a cellular regeneration protocol, Marcus said, reading from the display, but it would need to be modified for your physiology. I don't have the expertise to make those modifications safely. I can guide you, the Queen said, struggling to sit up despite her weakness. I have studied the medical arts as part of my royal education.
Together, we might find a solution.
For the next several hours, Marcus found himself in the strangest collaboration of his life. The Queen, despite her deteriorating condition, proved to be remarkably knowledgeable about both Zephyrian and human medical technology. She walked him through the modifications needed to adapt the regeneration protocol, explaining the subtle differences between their species' cellular structures. As they worked, Marcus learned more about the fall of the Zephyrian Empire than he had ever known during the war. The Queen spoke of a civilization that had grown too proud, too certain of its superiority, until it collapsed under the weight of its own arrogance. The poison that was killing her had been administered by her own council, nobles who believed that destroying the royal line would somehow save what remained of their people. We thought ourselves gods, she said during a brief rest between procedures. We believed that might gave us the right to remake the galaxy in our image. It took the fire of human resistance to show us how wrong we were. We weren't exactly innocent in that war, Marcus replied, adjusting the regeneration matrix according to her instructions. Both sides did things they shouldn't have. Perhaps, the Queen agreed, but your species never claimed divine right to rule over others. You fought for survival, for the right to exist. We fought because we believed existence itself should bow to our will. There is a difference. As the regeneration protocol began its work, Marcus watched the dark veins of poison slowly retreat through the Queen's neural crown. The process was delicate, requiring constant adjustments and modifications as her alien physiology responded in ways the human medical systems couldn't predict. Several times, Marcus was certain they had lost her, only to see her rally with the stubborn determination of someone who had ruled an empire. Why are you doing this? She asked during one of the quieter moments, when the medical systems were running automated scans and there was nothing to do but wait.
Your species has every reason to hate mine.
We brought nothing but death and destruction to human space. Marcus considered the question while monitoring her vital signs. He thought about Earth again, about the friends he'd lost, about the life he might have had if the war had never happened. But he also thought about the woman lying on the medical table, dying far from home because her own people had betrayed her. Maybe because you're not your empire, he said finally. You're just a person who needs help, and I'm someone who can provide it.
Sometimes it really is that simple.
The Queen studied him with those ancient eyes, and Marcus saw something shift in her expression. Recognition, perhaps, or maybe just surprise that such simplicity could exist in a galaxy that had grown so complex and dark.
You are not what we were taught about humans, she said quietly.
Our intelligence report spoke of a violent, aggressive species driven only by greed and expansion.
They never mentioned mercy.
Intelligence reports rarely capture the whole truth, Marcus replied, making another adjustment to the regeneration matrix. We're all more complicated than our worst moments. As the hours passed and the poison slowly retreated, Marcus found himself drawn into conversations about subjects he had never expected to discuss with an alien queen. She spoke of art and philosophy, of the weight of responsibility and the loneliness of power. He shared stories of Earth, of human culture and the dreams that had driven his species to the stars. Despite everything that had happened between their peoples, despite the war and the hatred and the death, they found common ground in the simple recognition of shared consciousness struggling against an indifferent universe. When the regeneration protocol finally completed its work, when the last traces of poison had been neutralized and the Queen's neural crown blazed with renewed life, Marcus felt a strange mixture of accomplishment and loss. The medical crisis was over, which meant the Zephyrians would leave, and he would return to his solitary existence among the asteroids. The debt we owe you cannot be repaid with simple gratitude, Queen Lyralii said as she sat up on the treatment table, her skin once again glowing with health. You have saved not just my life, but the last hope of my people. I don't need payment, Marcus said, beginning to power down the medical systems. I'm just glad I could help. The Queen exchanged a look with Thane Kilos, some silent communication passing between them in the way that people who had shared power for decades could manage. When she turned back to Marcus, there was something new in her expression, a decision crystallizing in real time. "Human Marcus Chen," she said formally, "I offer you a place among my people. We are few now, but we remember honor when we see it. Your skills and your character would be welcomed in what remains of our civilization."
Marcus felt the weight of the offer, understanding that it represented far more than simple employment.
The Queen was offering him a chance to be part of something larger than himself, to help rebuild rather than simply survive. But he also understood that acceptance would mean leaving behind everything familiar, venturing into an alien culture that was still, in many ways, unknown to him.
"I need time to think about it," he said honestly. "This has been a lot to process."
"Of course," the Queen replied. "We will remain in this system for several days while our ship completes its repairs.
When you have decided, you need only signal us."
As the Zephyrians prepared to return to their ship, Marcus found himself standing in the airlock with Queen Lyralii. The formal ceremony was complete, the medical equipment was cleaned and stored, and yet neither of them seemed quite ready to say goodbye.
"Thank you," she said simply, and in those two words Marcus heard depths of meaning that touched something fundamental in his understanding of what it meant to be alive in an indifferent universe.
"Thank you," he replied, "for reminding me that sometimes the most important choices are the simplest ones." As the Zephyrian ship detached from the mining station and moved back into open space, Marcus stood at the observation window watching its elegant form disappear into the starfield. The station felt more empty than it had before, the silence more profound, the loneliness more complete. But there was also something else, something he hadn't felt in years, the possibility that tomorrow might be different from today. In the medical bay, the regeneration matrix powered down with a soft chime, its work complete. But, in the quantum depths of its memory banks, detailed scans of Zephyrian physiology were being automatically stored, adding to humanity's growing understanding of alien biology. It was a small thing, perhaps insignificant in the grand scheme of galactic politics and interstellar relations. But, as Marcus would later learn, sometimes small things become the foundations upon which entire futures are built. Sometimes a single act of kindness creates ripples that spread across space and time, touching lives and shaping destinies in ways that no one could have predicted. Sometimes the most important moments in history happen quietly, in forgotten places, between people who never expected to meet and who might never see each other again. As he returned to his routine of maintenance and mining, Marcus Chen had no way of knowing that he had just set in motion events that would reshape the balance of power in known space, that his name would someday be spoken with reverence in alien tongues, or that the dying queen he had saved would become the architect of a new age of cooperation between species. All he knew was that he had helped someone who needed help, and, in doing so, had discovered something important about the nature of compassion and the unexpected places where hope could be found. In the vast darkness between stars, that seemed like enough.